Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I am making several cards today using several different die sets and stamp sets from My Favorite Things. These were part of their Snowflake Sparkle card kit, which was sold a few months ago. Everything now is available individually. It's not available as a kit, so I will link to each of the items individually. But I started with 4 different colors of cardstock, and I am using Blue Breeze, Cornflower, Sour Apple, and Tropical Teal. And I trimmed them down to fit the die set that coordinates with the Simply Snowflake stamp set. Because I've shown in previous videos, I don't often cut apart my dies, especially the MFT sets, because they don't nest any of the other shapes within. So they're all open like that, and it makes it so much easier when mass producing and just for convenience sake. So for these, I put the dies face down onto the paper. I have them in my Misty here. This is the regular size Misty. And then with the dies face down, I'm lining up these stamps with their coordinating dies. And with this set, it's really easy. Sometimes I struggle a little bit with some of the sets, the more line image sets, and there's, so many different shapes and things, and it's pretty time consuming. But with a set like this, everything just worked really well. The stamps fit perfectly and it just worked. So I lined up all those stamps, closed the door on my Misty, and then I've got all the stamps lined up. I have all my 4 pieces of cardstock already cut down. So then I'm treating them all with some anti-static powder. That just keeps the embossing powder from clinging to anything other than the stamped image. And then I'm inking up the stamps with Versamark ink, and then I'm coating everything with detail white embossing powder. So I sped this up quite a bit just to make it all go a little bit faster. Otherwise this video is going to be insanely long. But I do things in a system, and with this I was able to I stamped 2 at a time. I probably could have done all 4, but I didn't want to give the ink too long to dry before heat embossing everything. So I did 2 pieces at a time, and then I got my heat tool heated up and then melted all the embossing powder on these 2 pieces, and then I went on and did the other 2 pieces. So making sure my heat tool was good and hot, and then I melt all that embossing powder, and this set is gorgeous. So gorgeous. So got it all melted, and then since it was still hot, I can quickly melt the second one. Like I said, I probably could have done all 4, but sometimes, and especially me because I'm clumsy, I don't have a whole lot of space when crafting, so having large pieces of, ink and an unmelted embossing powder, work with what's best for you. That's my advice. So I knew I could do 2 at a time instead of all 4. So and again, you could go on and do 20, 30 of these, like whatever floats your boat. As usual, once these were done, you guys are seeing the edited results, but I only had a vague idea in my head. I never make cards ahead of time and then film. I don't have the time for that. I wish I did. It would make my life probably easier for the filming part and everything, but I just turn on the camera and film as I'm creating, and then edit out all the parts of me sitting and fiddling and all that kind of stuff. So I did all my stamping, got everything embossed, and then I'm running this through my Big Shot machine with these dies, and this is where it just makes my life so much easier to have the dies all connected and do what I did with the stamps and the Misty, because then I can just run them through my machine and 4 passes through, and I'm done die cutting all of these snowflakes. So I knew by die cutting these, I'm getting 6 embossed snowflakes per color. So I knew in my head I'd probably be able to get 2 cards with each color, just because otherwise there'd just be too many snowflakes on the card front. I wouldn't even be able to fit them all on there. So in the end, I was like, okay, I can probably do 8 cards from this. So I took the remaining halves of all those pieces of cardstock that I cut down, and I die cut them a second time. This is with the largest die from the Blueprints 1 Dynamics set. So it cuts roughly it's 4 inches by 5 1/4. I think that's roughly about what it cuts. So you could use your paper trim for something like that, but I like the die. I like how it gives just that clean edge. So I did that. I die cut all that in the same pass. And then I added my metal shim underneath the cutting plate there, because I wanted to use the stylish Snowflakes Dynamics, which are extremely intricate and detailed, and I'm using them on glitter paper. So having that metal shim just helped these cut cleanly. And then the next step I did was I grabbed my foam. I showed this in a previous video. This is the Spellbinders tool in 1. And I put the die cut piece of glitter paper right on top of my foam here, and I'm just running the Tool-in-One across it. And that's just really helping to loosen up these snowflakes from the paper, as well as loosen up all the interior pieces. In the whole process of making all these cards, this was definitely the most time-consuming process, getting all these snowflakes out and then getting all the interior pieces out. Personally, I think it was so worth it. These snowflakes are gorgeous, and when they're die cut from glitter paper, you can see it a little bit at the end. It's kind of hard to capture the shimmer of these papers. Yeah, it's just gorgeous. So like I always do, and I've shown in other videos when I am doing several cards at once, I do everything in steps. So I just sat and worked on them as I had time, around the kids and supper and all the different things. And once I had everything die cut, everything ready to go, I started actually laying things out and figuring out what on earth I was going to do. Even at this point, I still wasn't sure. But I was like, okay, I kind of had a rough idea. I was going to do 8 cards. And then I pulled out the sentiment set. This is the Snowfall of Blessings sentiment set. And there was 7 sentiments in this set. So I'm like, okay, I'll double up one of them. And I can use these extra pieces of cardstock left over. So far, I've only used 4 full sheets of cardstock. This was the piece left over from trimming the first pieces for those stamped and embossed snowflakes. So I used those to stamp these sentiments on, and I did the same thing. I just stamped them with Versamark ink and embossed them with the Detail White embossing powder. And once everything was stamped and embossed, I'm just going to trim those down with my paper trimmer. So I get everything trimmed down at once. And then once I'm done with that, this is where I'm finally figuring out, okay, this is how I want to adhere these. So I ended up deciding to quickly stamp a background, just using a couple of the smaller stamps from the Simply Snowflake set. There's a couple little clusters of dots and then some smaller snowflakes. So I just used one of the little cluster of dots. It's supposed to look like snowfall, and stamped those with Versamark ink onto my card front here, and then some of the smaller snowflakes. And then I decided that I wanted to layer the stamped and embossed snowflakes with one of the glitter snowflakes. So I decided to use 3. So figured out how I wanted them to be laid out. And then there's a few other little small glitter ones. So once I had that kind of planned in my head, I'm going to adhere this first card front. So I laid on, for this one, I laid on the glitter snowflake and then the smaller embossed snowflake. For all the other ones, I adhered the embossed snowflake first and then adhered the glitter one over it. And I'm being very light with my adhesive here on these really delicate glitter snowflakes because I don't want this adhesive to ooze out anywhere. If you're really worried about that, I would use the multimedia matte adhesive from Ranger that I show a ton. I usually don't use that adhesive when I'm making lots of cards because it's such a small amount of adhesive. For me, that feels wasteful. So I like to use my Tombow 1 Multi because I swear a bottle of that stuff lasts forever. I make a lot of cards, and a bottle of this, for me anyway, because you don't need to use very much. It doesn't, it just lasts. So once I was in my head and on paper, I'd created that one card front. Now I can go on and do my system. So I've got all my card fronts here, and I'm going to do all of the background stamping. So I'm stamping all of these pieces with that Versamark ink and those little small snowflakes and the dotted stamps to create my layouts. Doing everything at once just makes my life so much easier, and you can kind of, I don't know, for me, when I do things like this, that's why I kind of enjoy it. I don't do it all the time, but when I do it, I can kind of let my mind wander and, think of other things, and it just works. I kind of turn into a bit of a machine. So did all that, and then I go on to all the adhering. So then I adhere everything in one step. So I just work on the same little color combo. I decided to just stick with the same color cardstock as the stamped and embossed snowflakes. And then with the glitter paper, same thing. Just kind of kept everything continuous and less effort on my part. So did all my adhering. So got all these snowflakes adhered into place. I just kind of in my head really liked how everything kind of came as if it was coming down from the left. I found it visually pleasing. So got everything adhered, and depending on how a person was planning on mailing these, you could definitely flip all these over and trim off all the pieces hanging over the edges. I thought about it. I normally would. It would still look great. I just decided in the end not to. If I decide I'm going to pop these into regular A2 size envelopes, I would trim off those pieces that are hanging over, just because otherwise they're going to get mushed up in an envelope, or you could put it in a larger envelope. Whatever works. So I did all the adhering, and then all the sentiments I just popped up with foam tape. So you can see I've got all my card fronts done. So now I can go on to my card bases, which is another 4 sheets of cardstock. I get 2 card bases from each one because I cut them all in half at the 4 1/4 inch mark, scored them all at 5 1/2 inch, so they are all top folding A2 size cards. And then once I was done that, I decided just to keep the inside simple, and I just stamped more of the snowflakes from that Simply Snowflake set with the Versamark ink, just stamping them along the insides of the cards and doing the same thing. I'm using that large stamp first, so I'm like, I'll just do all the insides with this large stamp, and then I'll go back and do all the insides with, I had one of the smaller snowflake stamp, and then finally that same little like dotted stamp and the little snowflakes just to give it some visual interest. You guys know I like to finish the insides of my cards. Plus, it just doesn't take up a lot of space on the inside because you can write right over this because, you know, it's just a tone-on-tone look. So once all the insides of the cards are done, I can adhere all of the card fronts with some more foam tape, and that finished all these cards. Really, they were all done in one day. I can't say exactly how long it took me because I do it in spurts around, you know, life. But yeah, they were just fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, I will have links below the video to my blog post, links to all the supplies used, all that fun stuff. There'll be links to a couple more videos at the end, so check those out if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, and thumbs upping my videos. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.